So now let's dive into today's discussions. So my name is Kateřina Čampistančová, and I work as a policy analyst at the OECD Trento Center for Local Development, and I will be moderating today's workshop. This workshop is a part of the broader OECD project that focuses on the twin transition and the future of retail SMEs in urban and rural areas, funded by the European Commission, the Commission's DG GROW, and implemented by the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities. The project spans all 27 EU member countries, exploring the transformative impact of digital and green transitions on retail SMEs, local labor markets, and urban and rural economies. Today, specifically, we focus on the issue of labor and skills shortages in the retail sector. Preliminary findings show that evolving skills needs, demographic shifts, and increasing competition for talent are reshaping the retail employment landscape. This workshop aims to explore actionable strategies to improve talent attraction and retention. Now, let us begin by hearing from our opening speakers, Anna Rubin, Manager of the OECD Local Development Forum, and Joanna Zawistovska, Policy Officer at DG GROW, European Commission, who will set the stage for today's discussions. Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Katerina, for that warm welcome, and good morning to everyone online who's joining us. As Katerina mentioned, this workshop is part of a broader project on the twin transition and the future of retail SMEs in urban and rural areas. And I just want to start by, reiterating Katerina's gratitude for DG GROW and the European Commission for partnering with the OECD on this work today, as well as all of our speakers and participants who are with us today. As we head into the holiday season, it's really the right time to be having these conversations. Retail SMEs are essential parts of the economic fabric of our communities across the European Union and the OECD more generally. As you'll hear about more shortly, across the EU, there are about 20 million jobs in retail, or roughly 10% of employment. But we also know that we need to think beyond these kind of immediate economic impacts. These firms, these jobs are also essential to the social fabric of our communities. For example, these jobs often serve as a first stepping stone into the labor market for many people, from young people to migrants to women re-entering the labor force following a leave. Retail SMEs are also mainstays of the town centers and high streets that serve as the heart of our communities. They help give these places a unique sense of identity, foster local pride, and help to attract both residents and visitors across urban and rural areas. However, the green and digital transitions are bringing both pressures and opportunities for these firms and places. For example, rapid growth in e-commerce means more competition for small retailers, but also opens up new opportunities in terms of hybrid retail. So through this project, we're taking a three-pronged approach to see how policymakers can support retail SMEs in minimizing these risks and seizing these opportunities. The first prong is about developing new internationally comparable indicators to monitor the development of the retail sector. We're leveraging both traditional and new big data sources to help us get more in-depth snapshots on questions such as how the role of SMEs in the retail sector is evolving and how jobs and skills demands are changing in response to these trends. And to the degree possible, we're trying to understand these trends both at the national level as well as in different local contexts, recognizing that within countries, the situation can vary greatly. The second prong in the project is about mapping the types of policy and programs that national, regional, and local governments are putting in place in response. And here we're really aiming to document both what works as well as best practices that can be scaled up and replicated. And then the final prong of the project is really about what brings us all together today, about promoting peer learning and building a community of stakeholders from the public and private sector, as well as social partners, who can continue to engage on these issues and share learnings. At the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions, and Cities, where Katerina and I both work, we often talk about this golden triangle of people, places, and firm. And as you have already kind of seen, this framework is really informing our thinking around this project. So today we're here to talk about the people dimension. What does it take to equip people with the skills that retail employers are increasingly demanding? And what can be done to create more quality job opportunities for people working in the sector? In terms of the firm dimension, we held a similar peer learning workshop earlier this year to explore what policymakers are doing to support SMEs in the twin transition And we're undertaking a comprehensive policy mapping right now, looking at national policies across EU countries. We're also developing new indicators with a focus on how SMEs' role in the retail sector has evolved and may continue to evolve in light of the digital and green transition. And of course, as I talked about earlier, retail SMEs are deeply embedded in their local communities, so this place dimension is really important. Their success depends not just on their own actions and competitiveness, but also on the broader local ecosystem that they're a part of. Next year, we'll have another workshop looking at these questions more closely, and are currently mapping what cities, regions, and towns are doing to revitalize the town centers, main streets, and high streets. We're also looking at how these places are actually using their own sources of data and indicators to track how their town centers and retail sector are doing. And of course, at the end of this project, we'll bring these 3 lines of analysis together to offer cross-cutting recommendations, acknowledging this interdependence between the people, places, and firms. So I'll stop there in the sake of time because we have a really interesting lineup of panelists with us today, but I want to thank you again for joining us and really looking forward to the discussion. Thanks so much, Katerina. Back to you.
Thank you, Anna, for this informative presentation of our project. And I would pass the floor to Joanna Zajstowska, Policy Officer from DG Grow. Joanna, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Katarzyna, and thank you, Anna. Good morning also from my side, and welcome to this webinar on skills and labor shortages in retail. As you already heard from Anna, this webinar is part of a joint DG Grow and OECD project on the twin transition of retail SMEs in urban and rural areas. This project builds on the Revitalize Retail initiative of the Commission, which since 2018 promotes an exchange of best practices between the relevant actors, the small retail community, local authorities, and other public and private actors to support the competitiveness of small retailers in cities across the EU. And this is, of course, as you already heard, crucial for the local communities, for local economy, for local consumers, and this is why it's one of our flagship projects. This project will provide a necessary knowledge basis for the development of Commission policies on small retail and will help further spread policy best practices at national, regional, and local level. When designing this project together with the OECD, we thought that we cannot miss an important aspect of the green and digital transition in retail, namely skills. First of all, because the retail ecosystem is the largest employer of all EU industrial ecosystems in a broad sense. So together with other services that create this unique ecosystem, the retail employs nearly 30 million people, which is enormous. And second, because if we want to the retail ecosystem to embrace the green and digital transition, we cannot forget about skills. They are a prerequisite for any transition. And even if we know that especially SMEs often lack skills to adapt their businesses to the rapidly evolving technological developments and consumer preferences, the importance of skills for a successful transition is a challenge and opportunity for a company of any size. And importantly, it is often also a challenge for the employees. And this is why we have put an emphasis on skills in the retail transition pathway. It is an action plan for a more resilient digital and green retail ecosystem that we have co-created with a broad community of retail stakeholders earlier this year. And this action plan contains actions also on skills. And the most important part of it revolves around the Commission action, the Pact for Skills, which has been launched already 4 years ago. It is a flagship initiative of the EU skills agenda to bring together companies, workers, national, regional, and local authorities, social partners, sectoral organizations, education and training providers, chambers of commerce, to take concrete action to upskill and reskill EU workforce. And we are very happy to see that initiatives developed by our stakeholders under the umbrella of the Pact for Skills are growing. The large-scale partnership on skills in the retail ecosystem was created 2 years ago, And we have here on the agenda the coordinators of this partnership, Eurocommerce and Uni Europa, who are doing a great job to disseminate best practices on the and upskilling of retail workforce. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them. And we also have on the agenda the Skills for Retail Consortium, which implements a project co-funded by the EU to develop concrete training paths in retail, which is also extremely interesting. And finally, last but not least, we have brilliant examples of national initiatives from Ireland and Sweden, showing that there is a lot of knowledge and expertise on the local level in the member states. So I'm really looking forward to listening to all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanna, for these important points. And to continue our discussion, I would like to welcome Wessel Vermeulen, who is economist, a colleague of mine at the OECD Trento Center for Local Development, who will talk about retail employment trends, preliminary findings from the OECD EU project. Wessel, please take it from here.
Thank you very much, Katarina. So it's my great pleasure to start off with some statistics. So this is part of some of the analysis that we're doing in this broader project, and I'm a bit excited because this will also be the first time to get a bit of a sense of whether the statistics that we are pulling out, whether they make sense to you and to the other speakers. So to get some insight. So let's go to the next slide. The first statistics, I mean, you heard them already. These are not new. These are not things that I've calculated, but just to get you a sense of the size of the sector. So you heard already 21 million jobs. So and you could expand it to 30 million if you take the ecosystem into account. So if you take the 21 million jobs, that alone already is about 10% of total labor force of the European Union. So it's a large sector, so that makes it all the more important to look at it. Just one caveat perhaps to take, when it's on the next slide, is that in terms of employment growth, the retail sector in generally is not growing as fast in terms of employment as the business economy. So the business economy, I took everything from, say, manufacturing all the way to all types of business services, but then taking out the public services and the public employment. So you see the stats here across the various countries. So retail employment, the bar of the retail employment will always, or most of the time, below that of the business economy across most of the EU member states, and we also see that in the EU average. It's not declining; it's not growing as fast as the other sectors. So that's something that might be some food for thought for thinking about the future. All right, so what I actually wanted to talk to you about today was about the skills. So just to introduce a little bit how we can do this. So how can we analyze the skills in the sector? Next slide, please. So what we are using is a data source from online vacancies. So these are all the job postings from firms across all the European Union member states and over a span of time. From all kinds of businesses. And what these online vacancies are doing is very conveniently, they identify occupation, the sector, and the region. And of course, we have the country from which this region is. So we have quite granular observations on all these vacancies. And then we also, because we have the occupation, we can divide that a little bit further. So we can look specifically in the retail sector to occupations that will be more front-facing, and those that are more in the supporting features, so the back end, so all the facilitators of the shops, whether that's from, say, the distribution centers or just those that are stacking the stocks or cleaning up and so on. So I thought that would be a useful division to think about the different categories of skills that might be required in the sector rather than take the average overall. There are some caveats for this data source. So if you see some kind of statistics later on that don't completely make sense to you, perhaps just take into account that online job postings might not cover the entire job market, and maybe lots of jobs might be advertised more in a mouth-to-mouth fashion or just in a local community without going through job portals that are living online. So, that's kind of the caveat of working with this data, having lots of data, but perhaps it's sometimes a little bit biased towards different things. All right, and then I would like to look specifically at two types of skills. One is the general and advanced digital skills. So general could be something, a mention of email that is mentioned in the job posting that gives us a sense of what kind of skill is required for that specific job. But then we also have more advanced skills. So if there is a job posting for, say, an advanced ICT job, that would mention web design or web or setting up a web shop or all kinds of other more technical terms. So we get a sense of advanced and digital skills demand across the different types of jobs in retail. And I also wanted to look at a different type of skill altogether, which is more the personal skill. So to what extent is there mention in the job postings about assisting customers and clients, making clients feel welcome or at ease. And I found the keyword smile in some of the job postings. So I put that in there. Perhaps that's a skill that you might need as well in retail, specifically in front-facing jobs. And then the last thing that I would like to say something about is about the required or the desired education level across the different jobs that are posted online. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. These are the three sections that we go through. So let's go to the first evidence on the next slide, please. So what I'm going to show in all these charts, just to explain how the charts are being set up, we are comparing the retail jobs to the business economy. So all the other jobs that there might be in the business economy. And then we see to what extent that retail is different from the business economy. So if there is, these dots are above the zero line, it means that there's a greater demand for this kind of skills in retail relative to the business economy. And if it's below, it's the opposite. So what I find here is that for the retail front-end jobs, across most of the countries, there is a much higher mention of general ICT skills, so email or browsing or these kind of things, among these retail front-end jobs relative to the business economy. For the back-end jobs, it's, it seems to be basically the same across most countries to the business economy. So these retail back-end jobs are a bit more similar to, say, the business economy overall, but we see that it is, across most countries, this specific interest I mentioned for general ICT skills, which is perhaps an interesting finding already. And we go to the next slide, we'll say something about the advanced ICT skills. And here you get a very different picture, because here you see that most of the dots are below the zero line, so below the, say, the benchmark of what happens in a country in the business economy. So both for the retail front-end jobs and for the retail back-end jobs, we see a lower demand for advanced ICT skills. So that's interesting. Specifically, we think that back-end jobs will also include some of these, say, more of the online retail jobs that might be there. But even there, we don't really see as much of the mention of ICT skills. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this is more of a time dimension. So here we're looking at so both the retail and both the front-facing and the back-end jobs together over time. So what I wanted to see is to what extent that there is a gradual narrowing of the gap. So is the gap in 2019 bigger than what we see in 2023? And for some countries, that's the case, right? So the light blue dot is way below the dark blue dot. So that gives us a sense that there is an increasing mention of advanced ICT skills in that country, the retail job, relative to the business economy. But we also see a decline where the light blue dot is decreasing. So I think on average, there is this narrowing of the gap, but it's not necessarily observed across all the different countries. But this might also be part of the noise of this big data set that we're using. So that also gives perhaps some further analysis that might be required. All right, and I think now we're going to the other types of skill. The next slide, please. So what about these personal skills? So I found that just having this mention of course, customers will give you already a bit more of a bias towards this retail sector. So that will, of course, be more likely to be mentioned in some of the retail jobs than perhaps in the rest of the business economy. But it's also comforting to see that there is this high demand for personal skills in retail. So we see that for 2019, or you take 2023, there is a way more mention of this kind of personal skills being required for retail jobs relative to the rest of the business economy. But we also see it increasing, right? So most of these blue dots, again, the light blue dots are below what we find in the dark blue dots of 2023. So perhaps there's also a new appreciation that retail really needs to is working on having these personal skills for retail to perhaps complement the services that they are doing in person. All right, so these were the preliminary findings on the skills. The last thing that I wanted to say something about is about the education. So that's on the next slide. And I was already told by colleagues that this might be. I'm very happy with the slide because I like all the colors, but it might not be the most obvious one. So bear with me while I'm explaining it. So what I'm looking here for is to what extent is a particular type of education, the share of education that is required, and more often mentioned among retail jobs relative to the business economy. So if the bar is above the zero line, it means that that type of education has a higher share among retail job postings than in the rest of the business economy, and the opposite for if the bar is below. So if the bar has this negative, is below the zero line, it means that it is less in demand, that type of education in that country relative to the business economy. And what we see overall, if you take all the countries more or less together, is that there is this higher demand for the mid-level education, which is also something that Anna already mentioned before. It's often retail can be, say, an entry job for many younger people that might not have completely finished other education yet, or perhaps they have, but it's a nice way to enter the labor market. So we see this relatively higher demand for or requirement for having finished a primary or secondary, or perhaps some post-secondary education, but there is definitely a lower demand for tertiary education. Perhaps I can also split up in future analysis this chart between, say, the front end and the back end jobs to see whether there is a specific dimension there. But it's an interesting kind of a feature that we find here already across most of the countries. Right, so this was my scene setting kind of thing to get you some statistics. So just to summarize the main findings of what I just told you about on the last slide, please. So retail sector relies strongly on ICT knowledge, including for front-end jobs. We saw this high demand for general ICT skills, but we'll find some advanced ICT knowledge is lagging relative to other sectors. But then on the other hand, we also find that the skills to help clients in a personalized way appears to be growing in demand. So it's already in high demand, but even that it is growing across many of the countries. And then on general, we see that hiring is mostly in the lower to medium educated workers and a bit less likely to be, or a lower share among the more highly educated people that might be out there. So this is just part of the work that we're doing. We're also doing other analysis that will be presented in future work that we're taking out of this project. So what we're also specifically interested in is to look at to what extent, say, contracts or other job conditions vary in the retail sector relative to the business economy, just not to only get a sense of the skills that are required, but also what kind of people or how they are working within the sector. Thank you, Katerina. Back to you.
Thank you, Wessel, for those very interesting insights, specifically in the statistics that set the scene for more qualitative discussion, but also there will be other statistics that will complement your presentation. There is a question for you in a Q&A, if you can have a look at it and answer in writing, if it's possible. And then I will invite all the participants, if they have any question or comment or suggestion, to write in a Q&A tab that for the speaker. So add name of the speaker, that the speaker can review the question, or we can even take it for the Q&A section. So now up next in our agenda is Anton Delbar, Chief Economist, and Valeria Despain-Cherniak, Advisor Job and Skills. Both of them come from Eurocommerce. They work at Eurocommerce, and they will talk about employment and skills challenges and opportunities in Europe's retail sector. So we are excited to hear your thoughts on this topic. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. I'm Anton Delbar, the Chief Economist at Eurocommerce, the EU sector organization for all retail and wholesale companies, except sellers of motor vehicles, which as a result are always excluded from my data. I often also include wholesale as it often faces the same challenges as retail due to its very similar business model and it often being overlooked. Now, I only have 5 minutes and a lot of data to share, so I'll go quickly. If you have any remaining questions after my presentation in the Q&A, you can always contact me for a follow-up. My coordinates can be found at the Eurocommerce website. Retail and wholesale is a structural sector present in all populated areas, catering to all EU citizens. It contributes around 11% to the EU's GDP and provides 1 in 4 private sector jobs. As previously mentioned, it is by far the largest private employer with 26 million jobs, as many as all of manufacturing combined. The sector is diverse, with 5 million businesses, over 99% of which are SMEs. The impact of the inflation crisis has been severe on EU retail and wholesale. Unlike the COVID crisis, which had winners and losers and saw consumption rebound after each lockdown, the inflation crisis led to stark volume losses and immense margin pressure across all of retail and wholesale. For instance, current inflation-adjusted turnover in food retail, that's the green bar or green line, is at the same level as mid-2018 and 7.1% below its peak in March 2020. This means that 6.5 years of volume growth was lost in the cost of living crisis. Despite this severe economic downturn, job vacancy rates went down far less than you would normally expect in times of crisis. Especially in retail and wholesale, the decline was minimal. Atypically, despite difficult economic times, labor markets are still growing ever tighter. Why? Because of demographics. The working age population in the EU is declining at an unprecedented rate, approximately 1 million people per year for the coming decades, while the overall population remains stable. This demographic challenge is more severe in some countries than others, with countries like Germany and France heading towards a scenario similar to what has been happening in Japan since the mid-1990s, unless they implement radical policy shifts. But an aging population and ever-increasing labor and skills shortages are not just a European issue, it's globalizing. Large parts of Asia, especially countries like South Korea, Japan, and China, are heading towards a population implosion that makes the EU demographic issues look trivial. Globally, the only remaining region with a large surplus of young skilled labor and no issue of aging is sub-Saharan Africa. So the challenge is not just in finding enough people, though, but also in finding and developing the right skills in those people. By 2030, the retail and wholesale sector will need 800,000 to 1.5 million new employees annually, most of them just to replace people aging out of the labor market. Additionally, we need to upskill 10 to 13 million people, around half of everyone we employ. This will require significant investment in people, between 75 and 105 billion euro, particularly in digital literacy, new technical and analytical skills, soft skills, and green skills. This is a considerable challenge for a sector with difficult access to finance, which just suffered considerable volume losses and functions on razor-thin margins. In most retail segments, you're currently a top performer when you earn a 3% margin before interest payments and taxes. That means you make far less than the current interest rates. Realistically, social partners must therefore build alliances with governments to deploy projects at scale to reach these required investment rates, especially for SMEs. But since I really hate bringing gloom and doom, I will end my part of the presentation on a positive note. As you would expect, the growing labor market shortages are strengthening the bargaining position of employees, leading to employees capturing a growing part of the added value created by companies in the economy. This is good for retail, as it increases purchasing power without creating inflation. And as the consumer goes, so goes retail. Along with the hospitality sector, our sector is the lifeblood of local communities. It must continue providing its consumers with a good choice of products at a fair price while offering quality customer service. I hope my flash presentation successfully conveyed the scope of our sector's labor and skills challenges. And as effective training programs and public-private interventions are clearly required, my colleague Valeria, our in-house labor expert, will now guide you beyond my data to some sample projects. Valeria.
Thank you, Anton. Good morning to everyone. As previously mentioned, retail and wholesale is often the first job where workers gain valuable skills like hospitality and problem solving, useful for any career, but there are numerous career opportunities in the sector. Our members are greatly engaged in various skills-related initiatives focusing on areas such as reintroducing school dropouts to education, promoting diversity and inclusion, and helping workers acquire the skills needed for the twin transformation. Just to give you a few examples out of many. Our members in Portugal, the Confederation of Commerce and Services, as part of its People program, focuses on integrating four generations, from baby boomers to Gen Zs, into a digital, flexible, and informal teamwork environment. Key success factors include aligning career paths with workers' motivation through individualized approach and supporting work-life balance through flexible pathways. This August, the German Trade Association launched its campaign to showcase retail professionals sharing insight into their daily work, challenge stereotypes, and offer career advice. And then also another example is a recent project, or project to come next year, is in Denmark, where the government is launching a new 10-year project to support around 43,000 young people under 25 who are not in education or employment, and many unfortunately facing mental health or social challenges. Our member, the Danish Chamber of Commerce, is working with the Ministry of Employment and various companies on this initiative. And overall, the project aims to strengthen efforts in employment, health, and mental health with a partnership between municipalities, businesses, civil society, and the government to create job opportunities and better prepare youth for the labor market. All in all, collaboration between national, regional, or sectoral retail and wholesale associations, along with companies, trade unions, education and training providers, and governments, ensure flexible and tailored education and training solutions to address skill shortages and attract and retain people to the sector. At the EU level, our current social dialogue work program, prepared jointly with Europa, our counterpart, focuses on digital and green transformation, capacity building, EU policies, and health and safety. For example, next year, we are combining our efforts to address violence and harassment in the workplace through a joint statement. A focus on skills remains a key priority for both organizations, supporting our joint work as social partners and coordinators of the Retail Pact for Skills. Through Pact for Skills, we aim to build a hub for sharing ideas and intelligence on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling, bringing together all actors in the labor market. And where the Skills for Retail project, which Diana presumably will speak later on, plays a big part in this. Just to finish, by 2030, it is anticipated that large companies must increase their investment by 30% and SMEs must double theirs for on-the-job training and other informal learning. This means an investment of between 75 and 105 billion euros until 2030. Bridging the gap between funding and training is critical, and national, retail, and wholesale associations play a key role. It is important to simplify guidance on how to easily access funds at all levels, provide fiscal incentives directly available to companies or through their associations, and finally to continue fostering collaboration and bring together all key actors in the labor market. That was shortly about Eurocommerce work and its members, and thank you.
And I thank you, Valeria and Anton, for insights from the Eurocommerce on the topic. And I would like to pass the floor to Annika Flatten. Annika is Director of Commerce and Tourism at Uni Europa, and she will share insights on practices on tackling skills gaps and labor shortages in retail. So she represents another association at the EU level, that is the European Service Workers Union. So this complements the discussion at the EU level. Annika, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the nice introduction, Katarina, and hi to everyone participating. And thanks for the opportunity to share our view on labor and skill shortage in the retail sector. So it's already been mentioned, some of parts of my presentation, but yeah, we are the biggest of all, not only of Uni Europa sectors, but it's also recognized by the Commission as the biggest European ecosystem. And the number of workers has already been mentioned. Data from Eurostat also shows that 50% of all those close to 30 million jobs or workers are low paid. And that the share of part-time workers and workers on temporary contract in the sector is higher than the average. Workers are less likely to be highly educated. We have also seen data on that. And the profiles of the workers are younger on average, as well as predominantly females. Part-time and short-term contract in commerce are over 10% more likely than in the industry as a whole. The last European Working Conditions Survey showed that in the commerce sector or the retail sector, the share of workers who attended training or education in the past 12 months lies below the average, and relatively high percentage of the workers also reported that their skills are not used fully. And it's of course not only the challenging working conditions that contributes to the labor and skill shortage in the European retail sector. There is also a combination of other factors already been mentioned: the demographic shifts, the aging workforce and declining youth populations. The rapid digital transformation of the sector, of course, demands new skills, and it creates a mismatch between available jobs and qualified candidates. Furthermore, the perception of retail job as lacking long-term career prospects or sufficient professional development opportunities also discourage many from entering our sector. Finally, the increased competition from other industries maybe offer more attractive benefits and flexible work arrangements further worsen the issue. And before I continue, I would like to make sure that it's clear that even if my presentation highlights the impact of poor working conditions as a factor to labor shortage in the retail sector, it's important to note that this does not imply that the entire sector operates under such conditions. So I just wanted to point that out. Labor shortage present a complex challenge in our sector. So identifying and understanding the unique characteristic of the root sources of labor shortage in the retail sector is essential for developing effective strategies to address workforce needs and ensure the continued growth and sustainability of retail businesses. Problematically, the policy debate often focuses on very much on the aspect of a shortage of skills, with as a logical solution the need to make it easier for mobile and migrant workers to fill such vacancies. And this is problematic, as the lack of skills is sometimes shown exaggerated. Research by CEDEFOP shows that only 12% of the declared skill shortage reflect actual skills deficits. It can also reflect that working conditions are not attractive enough to attract workers to those jobs, thereby losing out to other sectors. Migrant workers might be willing to accept lower wages, but this affects a worse outcome for the migrant worker who by the risk of exploitation. and the risk of worsening condition in the sector as a whole, and is not a structural solution as these shortages appear at the same time in many countries. One key aspect that's also risk to be overlooked in the ongoing debates and policy discussions on labor shortages is that these shortages often stem from jobs with demanding and hard conditions that offer inadequate pay and poor quality employment, making them unattractive to workers. The solution in such cases goes beyond simply boosting skills, migration or mobility, as many shortage roles are not highly skilled and show similar patterns across countries. Instead, the focus must be on significantly improving job quality to attract and retain workers effectively. The lack of workforce is a key challenge for the recovery and the resilience of the retail sector. Developing attractive career paths with stable and quality employment, as well as ensuring fair wages and good working conditions through collective bargaining, especially at the sector level, will be essential to attract and retain a skilled workforce. I will share a concrete example from Sweden, and that's not only because I'm from Sweden, but it's also because Sweden often is viewed as a role model when it comes to labor rights, but yet challenges persist even there. So Handels, the Swedish Commercial Employees Union, just a few weeks ago launched a report based on several surveys they conducted about the members' condition and their wishes. The report showed that a large proportion of their members who work part-time do so against their will. 70% of those who have contracts for less than 30 hours want more hours. 6 out of 10 of Handels' part-time working members, and now I'm talking about workers in the store workers, say that they are worried about not being able to live on their salary. The report also showed that 15% are studying full-time while working. So that means that 85% of those working part-time are not students or working extra in the sector. It's their permanent job. These findings underline the importance of offering stable full-time opportunities and improving conditions to make retail jobs more sustainable and appealing. And due to the green and digital transformation, retail jobs increasingly require a combination of traditional customer service skills and new specialized competencies. And these needs are driven, of course, of the technology advancements and the shift to retail, to omnichannel retail, and also the changing consumer expectation, and of course also DD green transformation. So we think that a good implementation of the minimum wage directive will be crucial to promote collective bargaining, addressing the need for improvement of working conditions and the skills need for the sector. Sectoral social dialogue at European and national level on skills is key to analyze skills needs and promote a relevant training offer, but also to make sure that up and reskilling is accessible for all workers, whatever their status, and beneficial to all companies, whatever their size, since we already know that the sector has a high number of SMEs. So due to the green and digital transition, future skills need has to be identified and addressed by social partners who are the closest to the workplace. These include to retain workers and tackle obsolescence of skills, ensuring that employees have the right skills. At the same time, we must make sure that workers are not investing in gaining new skills that won't be needed in 5 years. It's a challenge because the needs are, like the digital, it changes happen so fast, so it's hard to keep up. For the employment relationship, the most relevant aspect is that jobs are constantly changing, requiring workers to adapt or move to new employment. In the first place, this is a question of upskilling. However, the traditional linear approach of training no longer works. We cannot squeeze into an ever shorter period successive steps for identifying new skills needs. Developing new curriculums, training trainers, teachers, teaching workers, and having workers use their new skills in the jobs before those will be outdated. Instead, we need a new approach where continuous training and lifelong learning are incremental and integrated into everyday working life. Considering the rapidity of change, the most appropriate way to reskilling the workforce seems to be continuous and incremental on-the-job training, and of course supplemented by outside training. And there are several important points to consider. Workers are no longer tied to a single employer, especially in retail, as they have to try to catch as many working hours as possible. Many are, as I said, working part-time or on temporary contracts, which also complicates skills development and training. And we also have and employers also responsible for training. It often results in skills and qualification that are tailored to that specific company and may not be applicable or recognized elsewhere. And also differences in financial resources, commitment and capacity among companies can lead to disparities in the quality and the availability of training for workers. Maybe I should shorten it because I think we are out of time, but yeah, but short. To address these issues, training programs should move beyond individual companies and adopt an industry-wide framework. This approach would involve collaboration between employers, employees, and their representatives, social partners, through social dialogue. Such a framework would be supported by dedicated funding schemes, ensuring fairness, consistency, and broader applicability of skills and qualifications across the sector. I will skip this part, and I don't need to mention our European Sector Social Dialogue or the Large Skills Partnership, because that has been very well mentioned by both Valeria and Joanna. So just to conclude, for Uni Europa, the solution to the challenges faced by sectors like retail, that is characterized by high employee turnover, widespread involuntary part-time work, 0-hour contracts, a big part of female workforce and young workers, high flexibility demands, low wages, low skills levels, and elevated rates of violence and harassment that extends far beyond simply offering training or promoting migration and mobility. Tackling these complex, interrelated issues requires a coordinated effort among policymakers, employers, educators, and social partners. Together, we must strive to build inclusive, equitable, and sustainable labor market in our sector that address the needs of both workers and businesses, ensuring fair treatment, improved working conditions, and opportunities for growth. We need a multifaceted approach that combines improving working conditions, offering growth opportunities, and fostering a positive perception of the industry with more attractive and career options. I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annika. Thank you for this very nice overview of what's going on and what you observe at the EU level in all different countries. There's a lot of heterogeneity, so I understand it's very difficult to grasp the picture that can depict all the different details of what's going on, but I think it was very clear, your message. You have actually a number of questions in Q&A. I had a look at them, but if you have time and you can answer those questions, then maybe we can go back to them during the last part, during our last part, so Q&A section. You mentioned even some statistics and survey from Sweden. We will have a specific presentation of Swedish case, but before that, I will give floor to Orhan Doherty, who is program manager at Retail Ireland SkillNet, and he will talk us through the SkillNet program that they have developed and deployed in Ireland. Orhan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Katerina, and good morning, everyone. My name is Oren Doherty. I'm head of an organisation called Retail Ireland SkillNet, and we're Ireland's largest retail training and education provider. So over the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to describe who Retail Ireland SkillNet are. We'll look at some of the training programs that we deliver, and then provide some recommendations for retailers to help them better manage learning and development, and also to help them attract and retain talent. Before I do that, I just want to very quickly remind everyone of some of the current challenges in the retail landscape. We just go to the next slide there, please. So as we all know, the current retail landscape and retail, it's going through a number of significant changes and challenges, including, emerging technologies such as AI disrupting the sector. Consumers are now more demanding and more sophisticated, and their behavior is changing all the time. Retailers are experiencing distribution and logistical problems caused by unrest in many parts of the world. There's also new sustainability legislation that can be quite challenging for retailers. And furthermore, retail employers worldwide are really struggling with attracting new talent and retaining existing employees. So many retailers are very short-staffed. So all of these challenges make the role of learning and development and training and education much more important now than ever before. And we would say that the successful retailers are actually investing more and more money and more resources into training, and the role of learning and development has been elevated to a higher level. Now, that's great news for colleges and for universities like ourselves who provide training to employers. And that brings us nicely to our next slide that explains what Retail Ireland SkillNet do. So Retail Ireland SkillNet, we're Ireland's largest college for training and education. We only provide training to the retail sector, and we provide training to existing employees and to employers. We receive funding from the Irish government through SkillNet Ireland. So all our training is either free or it's highly funded. All our training is designed for, as I say, people working in retail. And we've got a wide range of different training programs. We've got one-day courses, but we've also got 2-year courses and 3-year degree programs. And we'll look at those various training programs in a few minutes' time. But we do engage and collaborate with the vast majority of retail organisations in Ireland. And we'll just go to our next slide to see some of the companies that we engage with. So you can see there a wide range of different companies. We engage with retailers from all the various subsectors, including grocery, fashion, food, hardware, pharmacy, stationery. And this year alone, we delivered training to over 100 retail employer organisations, from very, very large shops that are multinational retail organisations, right down to small retail stores that might only employ 10 people or less. The next slide there, please. So a little bit more about Retail Ireland SkillNet. We've been in existence now for over 25 years. We're a non-profit organisation. We receive funding from SkillNet Ireland. SkillNet Ireland are a government-funded agency who provide funding to make training more affordable to employers in Ireland. So a really, really good resource. Retail Ireland SkillNet then, we're governed by a steering committee, which is comprised of senior HR representatives from a wide range of retail employers. And we meet about 4 to 5 or even 6 times a year. And we review our various training programs, and we try to identify new training solutions that would benefit the retail sector. But that group's very important. They share ideas, they share best practices, and they make plans on how to make the retail sector more attractive in Ireland. The main objective of Retail Ireland SkillNet is to develop and deliver impactful training and education solutions so that the retail sector is seen as a career of choice for new and existing retail employees. We also carry out a lot of research into the changing world of retail, and we research what the key skills of the future is going to be. So we're always carrying out research into skills. What are going to be the key skills of the future, and how do we provide training and education solutions to address those skills? So we address and we engage with a lot of bodies like colleges, universities, and trade associations. We're also participating in a very exciting EU project called Skills for Retail. And that project aims to address the skill challenges in the European retail sector. We'd also like to collaborate more with the OECD in the coming years because we like a lot of the work that the OECD do, and we think there'll be mutual benefits for ourselves and the OECD and further collaborations. And if we just go to the next slide there, please. Yeah, this slide shows some of the training programs that we deliver. First of all, there is the degree in retail management practice. We deliver that course in collaboration with the Atlantic Technological University. And this degree program, it only costs €1,000 per year. So in other words, employees who complete this program, they get a full degree for €3,000, 1,000 a year for 3 years. The target market for this program is existing retail managers and aspiring retail managers. And they continue to work full-time as normal, but they attend college between 19 and 21 days per year. So it's not too disruptive to the shop floor. And it's very much a work-based program where much of the learning actually takes place in the workplace, and the assignments are all centered around making improvements in the workplace. But employers really like this degree program because it's really, really useful in helping to retain retail managers who might otherwise be tempted to leave their organization. So it's a great way of locking in talent and ensuring they stay with the company longer. The second program on the screen there is the Apprenticeship in Retail Supervision, which started in 2019. And we deliver this program in 3 different locations in Ireland. This program is completely free. It's 100% funded. And employers get €4,000 for every employee they put on it to cover travel expenses, accommodation expenses, computer expenses, and so on. And the target audience for this one is retail supervisors. And again, they continue to work full-time as normal, but they attend college 24 days per year for 2 years. And we have about 100 different employers participating on this program at the moment. Again, it's hugely successful. The numbers are really, really big. And the program was designed by retailers for retailers, and much of the learning takes place in the workplace. And it's all about bringing back good ideas to the shop floor. And then finally, we have about 30 different short programs, 1-day courses, 2-day courses, 3-day courses, and 4-day courses, covering so many different areas of retail like selling, customer experience, retail security, merchandising, legal issues, and so on, even AI, e-commerce. And we normally deliver them to one company at a time and date that suits the employer. And we make the content bespoke to the employer needs, but we keep it very, very practical. Over 1,200 retail employees completed these short courses in 2024. So we'll just move to the next slide again there, please. So there's a number of reasons why Retail Ireland SkillNet is so successful. First of all, we are employer driven. All our programs are designed by retailers for retailers. And then the retail employers that we collaborate with, they all realize that to compete in the modern retail environment, skills are going to be hugely important. And for that reason, they realize that they have to invest in learning and development. Because in the past, skills used to influence success, but today and in the future, skills are actually going to determine business success. So the most successful companies of the future are going to be the retail employers that invest in skills properly. Second of all, we provide a lot of support to the companies. We show them how to manage L&D in their company. We design training courses for HR managers and L&D managers that show them how to manage learning and development. We show them how to manage work-based learning programs. And the more the employers know about L&D and training and education, the easier it is for them to manage it better within their organization. All the employers work as a group. We all work together. There's a great collaboration there, and that's key to our success. It's getting employers that are willing to collaborate with other employers. We're always looking to improve the profile of the retail sector in Ireland, We do information sessions. We document all the great programs that are available in retail. And as a group, we're very powerful. And we're also the envy of many other sectors in Ireland because of the wide range of training and education solutions and opportunities available to the retail sector. All our programs are delivered using the best practices associated with work-based learning. All our programs are very practical. Everything is about making improvements in the workplace. We don't have many exams. We prefer reports based on the employer's own organisation. And all our programs are informed by research. We do a lot of training needs analysis with each individual company. We look at research reports published throughout Europe and throughout the world. And we also carry out much research ourselves to determine what's the current and what's the future training and education requirements for the retail sector. So that helps inform all our training programs. And again, we'll just move to the next slide there, please. So some recommendations for the retail sector. The first recommendation I would say is that retailers need to make the learning and development function within their company a priority. And that means they need to allocate bigger budgets and more resources and dedicated people looking after learning and development. Because the learning and development function within companies will soon become the most important unit within the organisation. The second recommendation is that retail employers need to collaborate together to promote the retail sector. So rather than just promoting their own organisation, retailers need to come together and work together to promote the whole retail sector, showing why the retail sector is so good, promoting all the really good jobs within retail, all the new emerging roles like data analysts, e-commerce, security experts, social media managers, all these new exciting roles in retail that we once only associated with the tech sector, they're now all available in the retail sector. Thirdly, in order to attract new staff and retain existing employees, retailers are going to have to put the same focus on employee experience as they do on customer experience. In other words, retailers are really good at having strategies and initiatives that, I suppose, address customer experience. But from here on in, employers and retail employers are going to have to focus on the employee experience, because if there's not a good employee experience, there's not going to be a good customer experience. And finally, as we know, and we've seen in previous workshops, and previous speakers would have mentioned this, that in many countries throughout the world, retailers are struggling to recruit staff, and they have many unfulfilled positions that they can't recruit for. I think in the future, retailers are going to have to target untapped markets and especially look to recruit retired people. Retired nurses, retired teachers, retired policemen and women. Because these retired people, they live in every town in the world, and they have so many skills that can be easily transferable to retail. But they don't want full-time jobs. They maybe want 20 hours a week. But I feel to help address the recruitment crisis in retail, rather than just relying on 18, 19, 20-year-olds, start targeting people who are in their 60s who recently retired, because they have so much to give. And I think their skill set really does match the needs and the skills required in the retail sector. And we'll just go to our last slide there now, please. So I hope that gives you a good idea of what Retail Ireland SkillNet do, and the importance of learning and development, and the importance of employers collaborating with each other, because many of the challenges facing retail at the moment can only be solved by good learning and development strategies. You can see my contact details there if you do have any questions, or please do pop some questions into the Q&A function. But again, thanks Katarina for the opportunity to speak, and thanks everyone for their attention. Thank you.
Oran, thank you very much. And I have to correct myself, because we are head of Retail Ireland SkillNet, because we were promoted recently. So congratulations. I presented you in a not appropriate way. So thank you very much for your very insightful presentation. I enjoyed very much. It was on a very positive note. So I think even participants got some ideas or questions or suggestions that they can now type in a Q&A box for you that we can even answer and take with us for the Q&A section later today. So this was the first case. Although it was at a national level, it is very applicable for the regions and cities because you work in the whole territory of Ireland. And now we will go to our second testimony from Sweden. So Mats Jansson, who is CEO at Swedish Retail and Wholesale Council in Sweden, will share experience from Swedish Retail and Wholesale Council on Competence Boost for Commerce initiative. Mats, floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for all the interesting presentations. The Swedish Retail and Wholesale Council is the result of collective bargaining. It's the social partners on the employer side and on the employee side who have founded the Swedish Retail and Wholesale Council. So that's a platform to work together. If I get the next slide, please. What we are doing is that we have some areas where the social partners are cooperating. It's occupational health and safety, it's research and development, competence provision, where we have work groups or who are working within these fields. We also have an economic council for retail and wholesale who are doing some reports and are spreading knowledge and understanding of the importance of retail and wholesale. But I'm here to talk about the competence provision and that part. And the aim of our work group for competence provision is to encourage and enable more people to establish themselves and develop within the field of retail and wholesale. As you can hear, it's both the attraction of the sector, so it's to promote the sector, but it also, when it comes to the competence needed and the competence we need to provide for the sector. And the project Competence Boost for Commerce, if you get the next slide, was a project that we carried out between 2019 and 2022. And it was funded by the European Social Fund, and we had free competence development, 10 training modules focusing on the digitalization of commerce. We also had some teacher training, which I will come back to. Next. So when we were developing the project, we thought that a good thing would be to use the European qualification framework as sort of the language or lingo to talk about competence. So we had an inventory of competence needs where we had workshops with entrepreneurs and employees within retail and wholesaling. This gave us some understanding of what was needed, and we had expert workshops to categorize and formulate competence needs. Then we worked with the EQF system to formulate knowledge, skills, and responsibility and autonomy needed for each challenge here. Based on the sub-qualifications, we formulated educational goals, and then we had training programs carried out by training providers who we would have procurement of. Next, please. The training program modules were, as you can see, these are the 10 ones. Digital transformation of commerce, it's act profitably, courageous leadership, marketing and social media, and so on. Each of these modules were between half a day and 3 days, so it's short courses, which was in the beginning carried out as physical trainings at a physical place. As you understand, March 2020 made a big change to this when we had the pandemic coming in to Sweden, and we had to react. So the rest of the project was basically carried out as digital courses, which was a challenge, but it also made us sort of work everything through. So it was easier to do it again after the project. So what were the results then? If I get the next slide. Through the project, we had 364 companies where there were 1,616 unique participants doing 3,236 training days. I'll come back to the teachers, but 311 of the participants were teachers. What we can see was that the demand in large companies was leadership, customer interaction, key performance indicators, and that sort of things. While the small companies were more into the customer journey, customer service, digital marketing. What is extra interesting here, as we use the European qualification framework to sort of articulate the competence needs, we also could use it in the other areas. We had the job transition organization in Sweden, which is also funded by the collective agreement. They had their own project and they used 4 or 5 of our modules in their training. So there were much more people than those who were involved in our project. We also had contact with other ESF-funded projects who used our modules in their projects. But maybe most important, we use these insights when we are talking to the government about the development of curricula for upper secondary vocational education. So this was used, and now you can see the program at upper secondary schools in Sweden have some parts of our project, which was sort of funded. So I would say that we had a lot of ripple effects from the project as well. And next slide. Finally, so what have we learned from the project then? Well, we can see that there are high competence needs within retailing and wholesaling in Sweden. One question we ask ourselves is whether it was a good thing that the trainings were free. Maybe the best things in life aren't free after all when it comes to education, because we had problems with people signing up for trainings, not finishing them. So that's one of the questions that we keep in mind when we are doing the next project. For small companies, we could see that it was difficult to reach out with offer. They had difficulties to prioritize the training, but they also had a great need for exchange with other colleagues, as they were not too many within their own organization. When it comes to the large companies, we could see that it was difficult to organize the training because it sort of was in competition with being at work serving customers. But in order to get this done, it requires anchoring at the highest level. So what we could see is that the competence development in the digital area is in high demand, but many companies lack the structure for competence development of the existing staff and are dependent on projects funding. And we would like to come to that this is something that is done within the usual operations of the companies, really. I think that is needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you, Mats, for this very compelling insights into the competence boost for commerce initiative. I have a number of questions, so I hope even our participants have some to post them in a Q&A. And now to round off our session or our webinar today, I am pleased to introduce our final speaker, Diana Philipp, who is Deputy CEO and Chief Development Officer at JA Europe. Diana will share her experience with the skills for retail, preparing the retail workforce for the digital and green transition, offering a crucial perspective to close our discussions today. Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Katerina. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. We heard skills for retail was mentioned a couple of times this morning by the other speakers, and I'm very proud to represent this consortium today. And I'm going to offer some practical solutions to how everyone here on this call can be involved in this project, because this is the first blueprint of the European Commission that is working on upskilling and reskilling young people and young employees for the skills in the retail sector. If you go to the next slide. So we were born thanks to the large-scale partnership for the retail ecosystem that is coordinated by Eurocommerce and Union Europa, which we heard before. We won this first grant, which means it's a huge responsibility, whatever we do here, that we make it very strong, robust, and available for everyone across Europe. So we have a big ambitions to train fresh new talent, to upskill and reskill existing workforce, and to really be very hands-on and very linked with the needs of the sector. If you go to the next slide, it is a project that started just a few months ago. It's running over 4 years. It's going to be tested in 8 countries, but tested because only these countries were able to join the consortium at this stage, but everything which we are producing here is going to be available for everyone across the world. So we've already designed a new retail and skill strategy, which is available on the website. So you will have the link at the end of my presentation, so you can go there. I'm not going to talk more into it because we heard a lot from the previous speakers about the needs. We work with organizations that I mentioned before to really assess the needs of the sector in order to design the VET training program that we are working on in order to get the people trained for digital, green, and resilience transitions. And we are targeting, as I mentioned, not only the young people and the existing retailers, but we also want to get different companies and organizations joining forces, as well as policymakers and stakeholders, to help us shape the future and really drive the digital agenda for the retail sector. If you go to the next slide, you see that when we put together a consortium like this, we had to bring together education player, and I'm representing Junior Achievement, which is the largest education organization in Europe for upskilling and reskilling young people. So we will play that role, but we have all the industry players that are really telling us about the needs on the ground in order to really craft the content and curriculum for the market needs. And I'm not going to mention all of them, but it's been really great to have practitioners like SkillNet Ireland and others that worked with us to design the content, plus Accenture and the Chamber of Commerce in Austria, who really looked at the needs analysis of the sector, which is also available on the website, so you can have a look into that. If you can go to the next slide. This is a bit the timeline of what we've done so far. So all the work I mentioned on the needs analysis is available, as well as the strategy. And we are working on the sustainability strategy in order to see that the programs and the content that are developed in the next months are available for everyone. We've already done the deployment of the reactive trainings, and I'm going to tell you more about that because that's very interesting. And we had very huge pickup on that. So it could be available for anyone interested, and you can let me know about that. And now we are in the process of developing the VET training so that afterwards we test, and then we will make it available for everyone to be implemented. And at the end of the grant period, we'll hope to put together the largest pan-European retail skills conference that's really concluding the first blueprint on retail. So that's a little bit of timeline. If you go to the next slide. these are the first reactive trainings that we've developed. So we call them reactive because they're really specialized in short-term courses for new employees and existing retail workforce. So it's all about digital skills for retail, e-commerce essentials, digital marketing, human skills, green skills, resilient retailing. Those are the set of skills that we've done. We've tested, we pilot, we've done the training in 4 countries. We had a target of reaching 400 in the next year. If you go to the next slide, I think Joanna will be happy to hear that we've already trained more than 484 just in the first 4 months, which means that the need is very, very strong out there. So we have 80 companies that were involved in the first part of the training. And if you go to the next slide, you will see the first companies, and I didn't manage to put all the 81s here, just wanted to show that it's a variety of organizations and companies that were really testing the content, and now this is available for everyone to try it. If you go to the next slide, please. I mentioned at the beginning that we are bringing together different stakeholders. So we are putting a European Retail Skills Alliance that is contributing to the Pact of Skills for Retail. And we would like everyone to join forces. We call you to join the pledge. If you go to the next slide and explain what that is, because we want to have the vet providers looking at the content and see how they can take it so that they can prepare the next generation and the talent pipeline. But we also want retail associations and retail stakeholders to really support it, embrace it, and take that content and everything that is being produced here into the next phase. And also challenge us, because if we do not hear what is really the need of the sector, it's very difficult to craft content that it's going to be useful. So that's why we really want to understand from everyone what is needed there and how can we really craft the content that is useful for you. If you go to the next slide, being part of this alliance will really give you the opportunity to develop and roll out the strategy, at the same time to use the VET training program, to use the trainings for your employees as well, the reactive ones, and really be part of this wide range of players that we call it more of a movement towards skilling and upskilling for the retail sector, because we think that we could not do it alone. We need to bring all together if we would like the sectors and the next generation to join the sector. We really need to inspire them early on and work with everyone throughout their career in a pathway from younger ones up to when they are employers, to really help them to develop the skills that are needed in the sector. So that's what the Skills for Retail is doing, and I've tried to be as concise as possible because I know we are running out of time. The last slide is just the time frame which I mentioned before, so that people can look again how they can get involved and in each phases of the project. And then you go to the last slide, which is the link to the website, where a lot of information is out there. All the consortium partners are mentioned, so you could reach out to us and we'll be happy to have you join our movement. Thank you so much.
Yes, I thank you, Diana. Thank you for being with us, and also to all other speakers for very informative presentations. We have now some time, so we are not running out of time. We have some time for questions and answers. So I have taken a look at some questions that our participants have posted in Q&A. We are still in time to collect some more. And we have received a number of questions on skills, so evaluation of personal or soft skills during recruitments. So if there is any research done on this topic that is more on a qualitative side, that question was for my colleague, for Bessel. He said that it's a very interesting and important aspect, and we haven't looked at that aspect so far, but we can do maybe something even on a quantitative side. So if anyone, I would ask all the speakers now to turn on the camera. That already happened. But if any of you would like to say anything about the evaluation of the skills before the recruitment, if there's any experience on that side. You can open your mic and speak directly, or you can raise your hand. Yes.
I can come in there, Katerina, if you want. We would see in Ireland, in a way, a huge upsurge in interest from employers on investing in skills, and most employers are seeing skills as a way of attracting new employers into their company. In other words, they are saying, if you come and work with us, we will pay for a qualification, we will put you through a degree or put you through an apprenticeship program. But the smart retailers are realizing that now you have to really, really invest in skills, because in the past, retailers didn't really invest enough in skills. But now it's very much a knowledge economy. Retail sector has got really knowledge intensive because of new technologies, because of change in consumer behavior, and so on and so on, that sometimes the only differentiation between one retailer and another retailer is the skills of its employees, because they're selling similar products at similar prices, using similar marketing mechanisms. And especially for that in-store experience, they need to, the employees need to have high skills, because consumers are coming into the store having already researched much of the information, and the level of questions they're asking now are much more difficult than the questions they used to ask in the past. And the research we would have done would suggest that the most important skills are going to be human skills. It's not all tech. We keep thinking it's technology and digital skills. But in actual fact, the key skills are going to be collaboration, communication, innovation, emotional intelligence. They're the skills all our retail employers are saying are most important. And they're probably the skills that are actually getting worse every year. We're getting really good at digital skills, but we're neglecting our human skills, I would say.
Thank you very much. And I completely agree with you that before we go to the shop, we know more about the product, because we can read everything and we can do research. And nowadays we can even ask our AI for advice. So I think it's very difficult when you go to the shop with this baggage of information and that you are looking for very specific advice that sometimes can be difficult to provide to the customer. I agree. Thank you. Now, Anton, I saw your hand up.
So I think basically it's building upon what was just said, because I completely agree with it. But I think that what you hear more and more from companies is that skills is more and more core of the competitive advantage. And so if you are better at upskilling your people and investing in your people than other companies, in the long run, you win. Why? Because customer service is extremely important. And it's one of the ways to differentiate yourself. That's also why a lot of companies are actively investing in using a lot of the digital capabilities that are new, like artificial intelligence, but also other tools, to basically invest in the quality of life for their employees. Why? Because that frees up time by eliminating menial tasks and basically letting humans do what humans are good at and machines are not good at. So I think that's more and more, and it will only increase the importance of it, becoming a strategic element in how a business model is run.
Thank you. Thank you, Anton, for this very, the complementary answer. I would now move to the second group of questions, that is about the contract. So part-time versus full-time jobs, and short-term contracts versus permanent contracts. So also Annika said that there is this tension between the contractual aspects, and the question is about that our participant is surprised to hear that such a high number of part-time workers in the retail sector would like to work full-time. So in the present tight employment market, surely there must be pressure on to start working full-time instead of part-time. So why, if there's so much interest on the side of workers to have full-time job, there is no appropriate answer from the retailers?
Maybe if I can tag into that, I think that it's more an issue, it's an issue of mismatch of what the evolving preferences are of employers and employees, sorry, and what the employers can offer their employees. And that will also evolve over time, but it's also, for instance, if you get children, suddenly your preferences might shift. And so it's not only about involuntary part-time work, it's also about finding the right work-life balance. And what you see there is that things are evolving over time. And indeed, as the labor market will tighten, you will see that the issue of involuntary part-time employment will decrease over time. And you already see that starting, but you'll really see that when the labor market tightness will compound, and that's starting 2024, 2025 and beyond. And so that will be less of an issue, and more of it will be becoming better as a company and as a sector to align the preferences of your employees with what you can offer in your business model as an employer. And that will become more and more important if you have the war for talent and people, because basically the position of workers will become stronger there. And if you cannot offer what they need, they'll try to find somewhere else to work.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. Valeria, I don't know if you want to complement, because I see your written answer, but maybe you would like to add something what Anton has said.
No, I just fully support what Anton said. So yeah, and I don't know, I just was wondering perhaps Annika could reflect more on that. So it would be interesting to listen.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I actually, Anton, I hope that what you say that this involuntary part-time will decrease in the future. I hope, but for us right now, when we are meeting or listening to our affiliates at the national level, it's actually increasing. So it's an issue, but I absolutely hope. But I also agree with you when you say that it's important for employers to be, we say it, attractive, because that also will make the sector more attractive. But the involuntary part-time is a big problem. It's many times due to the flexibility that is needed and wanted from the employers when it comes to when it comes to staff, because they usually, when they schedule, it's easier to schedule when there is a high load of consumers, to say, because now they use a lot of the technologies, so you can look into which weekdays of the month, which time of the day are there a lot of consumers, when do they do the shopping, and then they schedule. And then of course I can also understand it, but it's easier to not have full-time workers, because you would like to make the schedule more flexible. We have had retail workers that worked for this is a big Swedish company that worked there for maybe 20 to 30 years in the stores. And then the company decided no, we will not have full-time workers. Instead, they changed and even offered zero contract for those workers that have been loyal and working there for so long, or they offer them short time, like 8-10 hours a week. And then the workers have to chase. They have to be more or less available 24/7, because they are chasing the hours to be able to have have a salary that they can live on. So I would say, for me, it's like in work poverty. They are not able to live on their wages, and this is not just a problem in some countries. It's actually the issue in many countries, and this, I know that many of our national affiliates are working on addressing this issue and doing whatever they can by collective bargaining or labor laws, and so, because it's a problem in the sector. And of course, I would like to mention again, there are also companies where it works well, so to say. So.
Yeah, thank you, Annika. I have a little bit different question from our participants. So what do young people not like about working in the retail sector? So we are talking about younger generation. And what are current perceptions about working in retail, and how so we address common misconceptions? Now, maybe I would give floor to speakers who haven't had chance to speak. So maybe Mats, to you, to think about the younger generation and what are their perception of working in retail and what they don't like.
I'm happy to pick up on
Diana, yes, after Mats, that was my intention actually, to give you floor.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, thank you. I interpret the question as, how do we make retail and wholesale attractive, right? Or?
For young generation. So young, I would say, there is no specific, because for every country, young means something different. So let's take, I don't know, 18, 27 range.
I think we need to show the possibilities to develop within the sector, and to both to young people in order to attract them. So what we have done from the Swedish Retail and Wholesale Council is that we have occupational map where we present different occupations within retail and wholesale, and what competencies are needed, and how you can sort of become a store seller, store supervisor, communication expert, and so on, and how to inspire people to establish themselves within retail and wholesale and develop within retail and wholesale. And I think we need to show role models who are working, young role models who are working in retail and wholesaling, to attract others.
Thank you. Diana, now. Yeah.
We're happy to pick up on this, because indeed, when we were looking at the needs, we did a survey and asked our young people how do they perceive the sector. And some of them were saying that they perceive it as low paying, not clear career growth, sometimes involving unpredictable hours that creates more stressful interaction, sometimes with the customers, or repetitive tasks. And one which was very interesting to hear, they were talking about meaning and purpose. So probably with this in mind, if we come up with more clear communication about growth opportunities, about training, about societal responsibility of the companies, maybe we can attract more young people to the sectors. But indeed, those were some of the comments that came to us when we asked them about why not more.
So just to clarify, is it about the salary? Is it about the quality of job?
It's more things
the
together.
career progress? It's the full
low
package. So there is nothing that we would say, no, this is number one, this is number two. So let's start to address first this and then move on. No, we have to take it as a
package.
Okay.
Things
It's
that
a comprehensive package,
yeah,
of issues. Okay, thank you very much. We have a question. So in the fact that stores are open late and on Saturdays and Sundays, also during the holidays, there are very few opportunities for people with some difficulties and handicaps. So is there anything that can be done for the specific groups of people that do not match the needs? So, for example, the flexible scheduling or skills that, or to accommodate also different groups of people that are that have or physical or other difficulties. Here, I don't know, Diana, if you want to say something. Valeria, I can see.
Yes,
so
I
Valeria,
can.
yes.
Yes, I can come in. Well, obviously, the sector is very diverse. And as already mentioned, there is a big number of initiatives that our members are doing on when it comes to inclusion and diversity. I can maybe come up with one of the recent examples that actually in Belgium, Commerce Training Center, which is funded by trade unions in Belgium, and then Belgium Commerce Federation, focused last year on people with disabilities, people with special needs, and how to integrate them and help them to be more active in the labor market. So I do not think that, I think that companies in our sector are doing a lot on this. So that's why I'm a bit surprised, yeah,
So
with this question.
yes, so there is already practice. One is in Belgium, maybe if
I think that it's just one example. So obviously, I mean, as a sector, we are against all forms of discrimination, and we are for inclusive workplaces. And as I mentioned, the sector is very diverse. So you can find any kind of profile. So yes.
Good, thank you. Anton?
Well, it's a small anecdote just to show what the labor market evolution, the constraining labor market will do. In the 1990s in the United States, in the Clinton era, there was also labor shortages because there was an economic boom, and especially when it came to retail, there was a lot of labor shortage. And so what happened is that retailers started standing at the exits of prisons to hire people that came out of prison because they really didn't have any people. And so basically it means that the idea of who you're willing to hire and who you want to hire really evolves with the situation. And so that's also what will likely happen. And that also means that when it comes to integrating people with physical disabilities or other issues, the importance will only increase over time in the coming decades.
Yes, thank you, Anton. I put the web link that Mats shared on YouTube. There is a movie, a short movie with English subtitles about the project Competence Boost for Commerce. So, and I posted in one of the answers. And then just building on what we are currently discussing. So there is a question specifically to Oran. That is very much linked to the thing of disadvantaged backgrounds, like people with disabilities, refugees, and young people with mental health issues. So in general, are employers open and willing to tap into a pool of these kinds of possible candidates who come from this disadvantaged background? So it's very similar, but it is specifically for Oran based on the program he runs in Ireland.
Thanks, Katerina. I think in the last 12 months or so, more and more retailers, there's definitely been an increasing number of employers in general, but amongst retailers as well, an onus or a preference to, I suppose, attract talent from diverse areas. And even yesterday, I had conversations and meetings with employers who were looking for training courses so that they can better employ people from diverse needs and so on. That means people from different countries, people with different disabilities, because what the smart retailers want to do is that they want to have a workforce that resembles their customer profile. And as our customer profile becomes more diverse, the employees working in those retail organizations also need to become more diverse. So the smart retailers are doing that. They even have diversity policies, diversity programs, And it's normally coming, it has to come from the top, it has to come from the CEO, from the senior managers, that from now on we want X% of people coming from different minorities, different backgrounds, different profiles. And maybe to an extent, maybe they're being forced into that as the labour market gets tightened. But I would like to think, I think a lot of them are doing it as you know, it's part of their diversity strategies and policies, and they want to give back something to the community as well.
Thank you. And that was the last question and answer, because we are now reaching the end of our workshop. So again, I would like to thank to all our speakers. And just to briefly summarize the key takeaways, at least for me, and I hope that you agree that today we discussed that retail sector faces some critical challenges, and these include labor shortages. Also, we talk about technologies, but not as a main or a very critical challenge, because there's a lot of going on in terms of training on technologies. But the demographic shifts and changing consumer behaviors are those that we should consider when we are drafting our strategies and discussing the way forward. So we learn about some promising approaches from Ireland and from Sweden on training initiatives. I was very surprised by the degree in retail management, that I think it's very, very interesting, but also short courses, not only on digital, but also on some soft skills and consumer. Also, I like that the focus should not only be on consumer, but also on the employee experience. And also to look at the labor market that is currently untapped, so future or current retirees, but also others. And now we discuss also people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And research and development is an essential part to get a good labor market intelligence and understanding, not only in terms of skills, but also in terms of future skill demand and consumer behavior. So with this brief summary of my takeaway, I would like to invite you to our next webinar. So the next webinar will take place in spring 2025, and it will be focused on town and city center dynamics and retail. You will be informed, you are on our mailing list, so all participants will be informed about this next webinar. And with this, I would like to thank to all our participants who stay with us for the whole time of the webinar. I hope that all of you enjoyed this webinar. You will join us in spring 2025. And I wish you a wonderful afternoon and a nice weekend. Thank you again, and have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.